Hello, guys. Chapter 23, A Royal Invitation. Alex and Connor were both given their own chambers in the palace. It had been the first time since their stay at the Shoe Inn that they had slept in a bed. It was the first night since they had arrived in the land of stories. They had gotten a full night's rest. They were so exhausted. They had slept until mid-afternoon the next day. It was strange for them to sleep apart from each other. Alex and Connor both woke up every hour or so, each looking for the other, and had to remind themselves where they were and that they were finally safe. The palace servants had taken their t-shirts and jeans to wash, and the twins were given clothes to wear in the meantime. Alex was given a beautiful scarlet dress with fur around the cuff and neck. Connor, against his will, wore a buttoned-up shirt with the collar far too ruffled for his taste and a pair of bloomers. For the first time in 2 weeks, they were dressed like they belonged there. The entire palace had been buzzing with the news of Goldilocks' escape and Jack's disappearance. The twins couldn't help but smile behind the backs of the frantic soldiers they passed in the halls. They knew that wherever Jack and Goldilocks were, they were together. The twins offered to go meet the fairy godmother with Froggy, but he wouldn't allow it just yet. After the journey they had, "I insist you stay a day or two and catch your breath," Froggy said. And so they stayed for the next couple of days. They ate every meal with Queen Snow White and King Chandler in the massive dining hall. Snow White told the twins amazing stories as they ate about growing up in the palace, living with the dwarfs, and the different reactions she'd encountered when people had thought she had come back from the dead. Snow White invited the 7 dwarfs over for dinner one night. The twins had wondered why one half of the table in the dining hall was significantly lower than the other, until the dwarfs marched in and took their places around it. Alex and Connor laughed and laughed until their stomachs hurt at the stories they told. Connor beat all 7 of the dwarfs and Froggy in a game of cards and took all their gold coins. It was the most fun the twins had had since they'd arrived in Fairy Tale World, but things became awkward once Connor asked King Chandler, "Why are you so interested in a dead girl anyway?" The twins spent their days in an enormous palace library. Alex scanned through every book on every shelf looking for anything that could put them on a path to finding a new way home. It took her 3 days to go through all the books, but she found nothing. Connor watched her from a sofa every day while enjoying dessert after dessert from the kitchen. "I think it's time we left this place," Alex told Connor. "You want to leave?" Connor asked. "Why? This place is great." "I don't want us to overstay our welcome," Alex said. "We're not going to find a way home sitting around a palace. Froggy said he would help us look. The sooner we start, the sooner we'll be home. Besides, despite what they may do to us, we promised Froggy we would let him take us to the fairy godmother. Maybe if she isn't too mad at us for breaking the glass slipper, she could give us a tip on how to get home." "I guess," Connor said sorrowfully, looking down at the cake he was enjoying. His eyes suddenly lit up. "You know something we haven't tried?" "What's that?" Alex asked. He stood up, closed his eyes, and began knocking his heels together. "There's no place like home. There's no place like home," Connor shouted. He opened one eye and was disappointed to see that he was still in the same place. "Just thought I'd try it." The next day the twins packed up all their things and dressed in their own clothes. They tossed the saber from the deepest sea into the fireplace of Alex's room, destroying it just as they had promised the seafoam spirit. They had just arranged to leave with Froggy afternoon that day when Sir Grant found them with some news. "We've received a message for you," Sir Grant said. Curious, the twins quickly followed him to the dining hall, where Snow White, Red Riding Hood, and Froggy stood around excitedly. The queens each held bright envelopes. A message from another kingdom blew his horn upon seeing the twins and presented them with an identical envelope. Cinderella had her baby, Snow White told the twins. It's a girl. The twins eagerly opened the envelope. It was white and addressed to Alex and Connor Wishington. A golden wax seal on the back was in the shape of a glass slipper. The invitation said, His Highness King Chance Charming and Her Royal Majesty Queen Cinderella cordially invite you to an exclusive celebration of the birth of their child, the unnamed princess, at their palace tomorrow afternoon. How wonderful, Alex said, but why are we invited? Beats me, Connor said, but maybe she needs a babysitter. I wasn't expecting to be invited either, Red said. Elected queens are usually left out. So you're usually left out? Connor asked. Red turned the same shade as her coat and didn't answer. Are we going to go? Connor asked. Do you honestly think I'm going to miss this? Alex asked. Besides, we should return the glass slipper and the pieces of the other one to Cinderella. It's the right thing to do. What about Froggy? Connor asked. Froggy made a gesture like he was calming a fire. Oh, don't worry about me, Froggy said. I wasn't personally invited, so I don't want to intrude. I've never cared too much for the Charming Kingdom anyway. Nonsense, Red said. You'll come as my guest, and I won't hear any more of it. She held her head high. Froggy knew he wasn't getting out of this one. We'll go see the baby princess, and then we'll find the fairy godmother with Froggy afterwards, Alex decided. Hopefully, she'll still turn you back into a human. You mean you're going to become human? Red asked with a hand over her chest. Yes, Froggy said. A long story. Why didn't you just say so? Red said. You have no idea how this changes how I feel about you. Although I must say I'm very proud of myself for being friendly to, whatever it is that you are now. If Froggy had eyebrows, they would have both been raised. Come with me right now, Red said, and linked his arm in hers. Let's go plan our outfits for tomorrow. She led Froggy out of the room. He looked back at the twins, his eyes saying, Help! But they were too busy holding in laughs to rescue him. By that afternoon, the carriages were loaded, and the journey into Charming Kingdom began. Snow White and King Chandler rode in one carriage. The twins rode in the other with Froggy and Red. They were surrounded by a fleet of soldiers the entire way. Now, this is a way to travel, Connor said. The twins kept pointing out familiar land that they had traveled across during their journey. It inspired them to tell Froggy and Red all about the adventures they had had. The Frogman and the Queen were all ears. Froggy croaked a couple of times during the twins' animated retelling, especially during the part about the trolls and goblins. Given their audience, they left out the part about sneaking into Red's castle and being partly responsible for the fire. The twins kept stopping each other to say, We can never tell Mom about that part, when they got to the more dangerous moments of their trip. The carriage traveled through the night and arrived at Cinderella's palace the following afternoon. Rose petals filled the air and bells rang from afar as the entire kingdom celebrated the birth of their future ruler. Froggy started acting very strange as soon as they arrived. He was shaky with nerves. The palace had made him anxious for some reason. The group climbed the never-ending steps to the front entrance and was escorted down a red-carpeted hall and into the ballroom. The ballroom was virtually empty and seemed much bigger when not filled with people dancing. Cinderella was sitting on her throne, cradling her newborn daughter. Sitting around her in a big circle, some in chairs, some on the floor, were Sleeping Beauty, Rapunzel, and members of the Fairy Council. Sleeping Beauty's and Rapunzel's husband congratulated King Chance in the corner of the room. What are you going to name her? Rapunzel asked. She was beautiful, with hair that matched the lock Alex and Connor had collected for the wishing spell. She wore it up in the biggest bun the twins had ever seen, and it still ran down her back and trailed behind her. I can't decide, Cinderella said. You should name her after my Aunt Rapunzel, Rapunzel suggested, and everyone laughed. I love you, Rapunzel, But I love my daughter too much to ever do that to her, Cinderella said, and everyone laughed even harder. Look who's here, Cinderella said as soon as she looked up to see the group walking towards them. Everyone was happy to see Snow White and Chandler, but the room grew very tense when they saw Alex and Connor walking behind them with the giant frogman. Everyone looked at them uncomfortably as if they were naked. Aren't those the twins who stole the glass slipper? King Chance asked, stepping forward from the clump of kings. No, we tried telling you it wasn't us. And Alex panicked, afraid history was about to repeat itself, and she and her brother would be chased by guards. Everyone, relax, Cinderella laughed. No one stole anything. I invited them here. My fairy godmother wanted to have a word with them. What does she want with them, dear? King Chance asked his wife. I'm not sure, Cinderella said. Alex and Connor exchanged looks of dread. This must be even more serious than the broken slipper. We may have accidentally broken one of your shoes, Alex said. Connor had never seen her look so ashamed. It wasn't really our fault, Connor said. It was, but it really was a complicated situation and would never have happened unless it's absolutely had to. Oh, that's no trouble at all, Cinderella said. I can't tell you how many times I've broken them myself. The fairy godmother always fixes them when she visits. That's probably all she wants. She'll be here soon. The twins sighed with such relief that they shrank a few inches. Connor patted his sister on the shoulder as he knew she had been stressing about it. If there was ever a group of people she wanted to leave a good impression on, it was this one. Snow White, Red, Alex, and Connor joined the women huddled around the baby. King Chandler dragged Froggy out over to where the men were in the corner and introduced them to him. Froggy awkwardly shook their hands. He was the first frogman ever to be inside the palace. Look at her, Snow White said, looking down at the baby princess. She's beautiful. She looks just like you, Cinderella, Red said. I was a beautiful baby myself. The princess was indeed beautiful. She was only a few days old, but looked just like her mother, with auburn hair and bright eyes. I'm so glad to see you two are all right, Sleeping Beauty said to the twins. Did everything work out for you? She winked at them. The twins looked down at their feet. Not so great, unfortunately, Alex said. She reached into her bag and pulled out the spindle. Thank you for letting us borrow this, though. My pleasure, Sleeping Beauty said, and took the spindle from her. And Connor and I have to thank you for your, what did you call it again? Oh yes, the rubber band trick. We've been trying it on a few citizens, and it appears to be helping quite a bit. Connor was beaming. I told you so, he said, a rare thing for him to say. Snow White, I heard you finally found your stepmother, Cinderella said. Congratulations! That must be such a relief. The other queens and fairies added their congratulation on the subject. However, Snow White didn't seem to be happy about it. Is everything all right, Snow? Sleeping Beauty asked. Yes, of course, Snow White said. It's all very bittersweet. Bittersweet? Esmeralda asked. It's a long story, Snow White said. Wonderful. I love stories, Rapunzel said, and made herself more comfortable sitting on the floor. Snow White looked at the twins. They smiled very supportively at her, encouraging her to tell the others everything they already knew. Snow White told the queen and fairies all about her stepmother's past. She explained to them about the enchantress taking her away from her family, how her fiancé was cursed into a mirror, and about the heart of stone. She left out the part about helping her escape, however, because just as the twins had kept details from Red Riding Hood, Snow White knew her audience. Many of the women looked as if they were on the verge of tears. Some held their hands over their mouths. Others just shook their head in disbelief. I can't believe it, Rosetta said. That's the saddest story I've ever heard, said Coral, petting the walking fish who rested peacefully on her lap. And even when the whole world hated her, she still never quit trying to free the man she loved, Sleeping Beauty said. She never gave up hope, Skylene said. Cinderella sat straight up in the throne. Hope. That's it, she said, looking down at her daughter. That's what I'm going to name her. Princess Hope Charming, the future queen. It's beautiful, King Chan said, and kissed his newborn daughter on the forehead. Everyone awed and clapped their approval. Then I believe it's time we christen Princess Hope with a few gifts, Esmeralda said, and gestured to the fairies to get on their feet. One by one, the fairies each blessed the princess with the christening spell. They gave her gifts of wisdom and health, of compassion and wealth, of pride and discipline, and lastly of beauty, although she already had plenty to spare. Would you like to hold her? Cinderella asked Alex. Me? Alex asked, pointing to herself. Yes, I would be honored. Cinderella gently placed her daughter into Alex's arms. Alex wondered if the baby had any idea where or who it was. Did she know how special she already was just by having been born? Did she know she was a future queen of a kingdom in the land of stories? The baby yawned. Perhaps she did know and was exhausted just thinking about it. The doors of the ballroom opened, and the twins saw a familiar face coming toward them. It was Sir Lambton, and he had an enormous grin on his face. Your Majesty, the fairy godmother has arrived, Sir Lambton said. Oh, splendid, Cinderella said. Would you let her know where we are? Certainly, Your Highness, Lambton said, but before she joins you, she would like to have a word with the children, alone. All the heads in the room turned to Alex and Connor, who gulped in unison. She's waiting in the clock tower, Lambton said. The twins slowly walked out of the ballroom with Lambton. He guided them through the palace, staircase after staircase, up to the clock tower. It's great to see you two again, Lambton told the twins. The fairy godmother has been looking for you two for quite some time now. That can't be good, Connor said. Are we in trouble? Lambton didn't answer. The twins grew very worried by his silence. Alex pulled out the map and the journal from her bag, along with a piece of the glass slipper. If she's upset about something, we'll just explain. Ourselves from the very beginning, Alex said. We haven't done anything wrong, have we? Of course not, Connor said. Our intentions were always very good with everything we did right. The twins and Lambton ran out of stairs to climb up and found a round door that led inside the clock tower. Lambton knocked lightly on the door. Come in, said a voice from inside. Here we go, Alex said to Connor, fingers crossed. Lambton led the twins inside. The clock tower was gigantic. The twins felt they were in the inside of an enormous antique clock, as there were giant turning gears and mechanisms everywhere they looked. They could see the entire kingdom through the clock face. A short woman was standing with her back to the door, looking out over the kingdom. She wore a long hooded light blue overcoat that sparkled like the night sky. I'll leave you alone now, Hampton said. He promptly shut the door behind him and left the twins alone with the fairy godmother. The twins cautiously tiptoed closer to the woman. Excuse me, Connor asked Miss Fairy Godmother. You wanted to see us? The fairy godmother turned to face the children. She was a beautiful older woman with kind eyes and radiant smile. Her hair was the light brown and worn up in a gorgeous hairdo. The twins froze. Grandma? Alex gasped. That's the end of that chapter, guys.